Good morning and welcome to another little fireside chat. This morning I'm joined by a dear friend, Georgina Field, or as she's known, Twink, who is the founder of White Marble, a consulting marketing business in London. Morning, Twink, how are you?
Hello. Good, thanks. Nice
Now,
to see you.
You live just literally a few miles away, don't you? You're
I'm not far away at all, around the corner, over the hill.
We're near neighbours, yeah. But it's here we are on a sunny morning. You and I think our businesses set up about the same time. Tell our viewer a little bit more about White Marble and what it does.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So White Marble is as you say, marketing consultancy. We specialize in the investment management space. And so we work with clients on their marketing projects, the marketing priorities, and really across the marketing spectrum. So we bring sort of deep specialisms across digital and sustainability, research, brand, campaigns. We have a sort of team of dedicated specialists across these different areas, and then we make them available to our clients as and when they need them to then help accelerate and lead some of the projects that they're working on.
And I think you recently launch an office operation in the States as well?
Yeah, we've been there for a couple of years now, actually. We're kind of building out the team on the ground and working with clients, both kind of US asset managers focused on the US market, as well as your kind of global asset managers, where we're working with them both here in Europe and in the US to sort of help them with the kind of consistency and the kind of focus of their plans and campaigns.
Whereabouts is the office?
We've got two, actually. We've got one in Boston, one just outside Manhattan.
Very nice.
And that's on top of obviously the London office.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to pop in next time I'm over.
Yeah, I know. I saw that you'd done a trip recently.
Yeah, I know. It was a very good trip. Actually, very good trip.
Good. Glad to hear.
So, as someone who attempts to do marketing, I've never professed.
You're talking about me or you now?
No, me. Talking about me. So, someone who professes to be the occasional marketeer, yeah, for every good one, I've done a bad one as far as attempts doing these things. And it does. I mean, marketing does cover a multitude of sins, and it is often misunderstood by old folk like me. But marketing today incorporates so many different things. What do you think are the key elements that investment managers should be aware of when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shy to say marketing covers sins. I think it's about really kind of making a hero of what your business is all about. And so we do a lot, we focus a lot on kind of corporate positioning, what's kind of thinking about your brand, thinking about sustainability, your visual identity, as well as your proposition, the articulation around your proposition, the clarity of that, the differences in it, so that your customer can be really clear about what you stand for, what your proposition is. And I think critically, marketing is about what that experience is for your investors. So not only ensuring that they really understand your proposition, but also that their engagement and their experience with your business is seamless and actually kind of a business they want to engage with over the long term. So marketing is and has become increasingly a strategic partner within these asset management companies now, working hand in glove with sales, of course, really thinking about the sales funnel, making sure that the right messages are meeting your prospects at the right time, but also working with the product teams, making sure that that proposition is articulated powerfully, clearly, and consistently at all touch points.
Yeah, I remember some years ago working with a firm where marketing would come up with, almost in the product design element, the product development, they'd come up with a product and literally deliver it on a Monday morning to the sales team and then go, say, well, off you go and sell it. And the sales team had no idea, hadn't been brought into the whole development and marketing input until literally the last minute on 23:59. It was crazy. And marketing and sales really are joined at the hip, aren't they? And product development. But I guess all elements of the business should look at marketing as a tool as well as
a partner.
Yeah,
definitely. You know, and I think, you know, the strategic input, the sort of disciplines that we bring that are so critical to that client experience, to say, is such an important part now of and how a business goes to market. And I think it's about, you know, pulling and pooling the right resources across the business to ensure that everybody's aligned. We know that the client, this is something that the client wants, and how do we make it accessible and consistent and relevant to them?
Yeah, that so resonates with me. I mean, by definition, we tend to work with boutique managers. I know you work with some large firms as well, larger firms, but boutiques, they've got to get it right, because their messaging is wrong. It's wasted money, and the budgets are limited, so they've got to be careful. Yeah. I mean, on that point, what do you see the key mistakes that investment managers make when they're promoting their business or their funds generally? What key mistakes do they make?
So I think the main mistake really is not really thinking through the client journey. So I think that the lack of integration of a marketing plan. You know, I think you can see people kind of go, oh, we'll do an event and then we'll promote our product here in the event, and they don't think about what's the next step that the client's going to take, and how do we integrate that and make sure that's consistent to what they heard in the room when we were presenting on that day, so that it's all reinforcing and sort of aligned to the same critical points that you want them to understand. Because I think the main thing we see asset managers fall down around is really this fragmentation of messaging, and it takes a lot of rigor to make sure you're saying the same three things, if it is three things that you want people to understand about you. The rigor to keep coming back to the same things in every environment, every channel, distribution channel, has to be reinforcing and reiterating those same points. And I think it can get boring internally, because you're like, oh, the same things again. Yeah. But ultimately your clients aren't seeing that sort of that repeated kind of boring messages you see it. They're just getting confidence from the fact that you're saying the same thing last week that you're saying this week. And that's what they want to see, that consistency coming through. So that's, for us, is the kind of the main issue that we see, this proliferation of messaging that stops you being known for something.
Yeah, I'm delighted to hear you say about the three, the whole, you know, cutting things and doing things in threes. That's something that I talk about all the time. It could be, and they have to be 3, 6, or 9, whatever it has to be 3, because quite honestly, most people can only remember 3 things. I think that's is that the rule? Is that where it came from? About people? Yeah. I think that's really important. And I think that consistency of message, that's something that we talk to with our fund managers, and I think that's good to hear. At least I'm doing something right. And I mean, when we get involved with a lot of fund managers who are launching new products, in fact, they're launching their businesses, be it they're US managers, Asian managers, European managers, or here in the UK, they're launching their business via the fund. I mean, in some cases, they're established managers, and as you know, with your US operation, you've been working with a boutique, but a boutique in the US is $20 billion compared to $1 billion over here. So they're big managers and they've got established products. But when they're coming to launch a fund, particularly say here into the UK, what are the collateral? What stuff should they have to hand when they're going and presenting to clients? What are the key areas?
So we definitely see the need to understand local needs. So I think the key things to really understand is kind of where your clients' communities are, where they're finding their information, what are their needs that are distinct and different to maybe the audiences and clients you're quite used to. So really doing that sort of immersion and discovery to be very clear on where your customers are, so finding their information, informing themselves, so that you can make sure that you're in those communities, that you're in those places of information and trust that your clients are using. And I think and really making sure that the messages that you're coming to the market with aren't necessarily just the kind of the messages that you kind of rolled out and you've got in your collateral already, and it's bound to be relevant because it's worked here. I think it's really making sure that you circle back, really look at the needs of the customers, look at the competition in that market to understand how you line up in it, you know, really understanding how you're going to present yourself to be different and serving their needs. So that relevance and differentiation and authenticity, those are the three things that we always talk to clients about. And clearly, to understand how you're different, you've got to really look at the market and look at what people are buying to solve the same problem potentially that you're there to deliver on. But also what's really authentic. You know, people really buy people, and you've got to make sure that, you know, your brand, your business, the kind of person that's interacting with this customer is sort of saying something that is deeply held truth within your business, because that is powerful and that is believable. And then you kind of really get to something meaningful for clients to engage with.
But that's part of the brand, isn't it? I mean, that's we talk about brand a lot in our industry, and I've always been a bit skeptical about brand, because when I said it's a dangerous area to go into, but when I first started to look at this sort of thing, I thought, well, brand, if you've got a Mars bar in San Francisco is the same as in Tokyo, as the same. There's consistency of product, because there's no variation on effectively the recipe. But we're working in an industry where there is no consistency, because we're susceptible to performance changes in markets, currencies, equities, fixed income, changing personnel. The fund manager decides to jump. There's lots of inconsistencies. So how does a business create a brand when you've got all those inconsistencies around?
So I think that kind of the values and the principles that the business holds dear informs the culture of that company. And leadership in that business is obviously critical to that. You know, the tone is set in that boardroom. What you stand for, what you stand against as a business is often led by the kind of the C-suite, and that informs how the kind of the wider behaviors of the business. And I think this relates back to the point around, you know, the consistency of those behaviors that are aligned to your values is what kind of works alongside the kind of the volatile markets we work in. So how you apply yourself, the approach that you take, the discipline that you have, all of those things should be consistent. I mean, if you're sort of moving around in terms of how you think about things and your approach, then I think that is a very dangerous place to be. And I think, you know, you'll be found out quickly by institutional buyers at the very least. So I think, you know, the consistency in which you as a business apply yourself in these markets is absolutely critical. And that sits often, as I say, in the tone that's set in the boardroom, the culture that you create that informs the behaviors right across the business. And I think, you know, bringing more of that sort of behavioral EQ element into your brand is a real focus these days. So really moving away from just describing what you do, which is plain and flat and boring, to getting somewhere where kind of you get to sort of why you do it, how you do it differently in that behavior, in that collective as a people, and why that sits so true within your business and your brand. And getting that emotional and rational balance in terms of your brand positioning is really where you can create some differentiation. You're not going to get that through describing better what you do to the next person, because frankly, a lot of what we do is the same. Yeah. The 5% difference that you can find often is in the behavioral aspects and the cultural power that you have and the principles that you stand by and that you're not prepared to deviate from.
This so resonates with me, actually. I have to say, I think it resonates with everyone within GemCap. In fact, we're having a away day in a few weeks' time, and we'll be talking about these sort of things. Oh, I might get you to dial in. But so what you just said there, is, again, sort of leads on to another point of mine, the point that I often try and get across to fund managers. Some years ago, we worked with a manager who is now well established here in the UK, doing very, very well. And when we started working with them, we told them to own the space, own that space, try and control the dialogue, control the content that's going out across the market, and to contribute.
Do you want a job, Stuart? You're better at this marketing business than you think.
This is sales. And they did it really, really well. A lot of people can't, and therefore they've got to rely on, particularly if they're in a very competitive space. If you're selling global equities, how do you differentiate? What's your key selling points? And that often comes down to content and the stuff that you put out there in people. Have you seen really good examples of content where people have created, going back to those values, and created their brand and created their values and what they stand for out there with good content? Would you give us examples to our viewer?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some good examples I can share and come to. I think that just to your earlier points around, this comes back to the framework and the rigor point that we made earlier. Making sure that you are talking on the issues that you want to take a leadership stance in, and you can't own the whole space. It's a bit like the sustainability space. I think it is very difficult to really own the end-to-end space of sustainability. I think you have to look inside yourself and decide and work out what you are deeply passionate about and galvanize behind, and go, that is where we can make a difference. That's where we're going to align ourselves, commit to, and ensure that all our behaviors and our actions are going to move that agenda forward. And it's about the identification of that piece. And so whether it's sustainability or your position in global equities, as you say, it's about consistently focusing and aligning your messaging, your evidence, your storytelling, and your content, therefore, around those points. And I think there's a bit of a backstory in this whole content area, because I think back to the earlier stages of my career, and getting fund managers to buy into the idea of some content marketing was very difficult. It was all about, well, here's your kind of monthly update on what I've done in the portfolio, and that was it, and but I think brilliantly it's been something that over time fund managers and sort of the group have sort of recognized the power of content marketing. But the issue is now we've gone almost the other end, where everybody is happy typically, and that to write some content, and when they're in the shower that morning, they've decided they're going to write some incredible piece on gold or something, and then they've got nothing to do with it. And so they're talking about, often we sort of getting a lot of content that is just actually confusing people as to, again, where your focus is, what your priorities are, what you want to be known for. It's just clouding the whole issue. And sort of, again, so now that we're in this world where we're kind of really trimming things back, really bringing things back to sort of where we want to align ourselves, as I say, where we want to put our resources and what we want clients to know us for. And so sort of making sure that we're not talking about all this other stuff that actually gets in the way of the kind of key points and key areas that we want to express. So to your point around sort of good content out there, I think there are a couple of interesting specific pieces that I've seen recently. One, BNP Paribas, I think they do some great content actually, and they've been looking at using sort of AI, voice technology, kind of avatars and things like that in their videos. It's kind of quite progressive and quite interesting stuff going on in their video content. And actually, I saw on LinkedIn something that BNY have done with the creators of Wallace and Gromit, all about sort of pathways to inclusive investment, and it's really, really great collaboration. So yeah, I think those were a couple of things that caught my eye recently in terms of sort of video collaboration, thinking about a bit differently about how to bring concepts to life.
Yeah, you've got to think. You're absolutely right. You've got to think differently, haven't you? It's no good just doing the same old thing. And again, when you talked about the monthly updates, that's why I went like that. When I see fund managers give me a 50-page quarterly update, that's, well, the day you wrote it is the day it went out of date. So what's the blooming point? You've got to have stuff which is timely and informative and stuff. And that leads nicely, and you touched on it just a moment ago, which is about LinkedIn. I mean, the whole social media aspect. You know, here we are doing a video which will get posted on Twitter and LinkedIn. I don't think we'll do a meme out of this or a TikTok. We could do a TikTok, I don't know. But anyway.
We could actually. Sophia in our company has done a few posts on about TikTok, so she'd be delighted if I ventured down that path.
Okay. I don't even have a TikTok account. I think my children do. But anyway, I mean, do you find? I find Twitter an interesting place. I'll be on a personal level. I find it. We have both a corporate account and I have a personal account and similar followers, etc. And on LinkedIn we have the same corporate and personal. We find them useful for getting the message out. I mean, do you feel the whole social media bandwagon, so to speak, is it beneficial to fund managers? Should they be using it?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think it's another distribution channel, isn't it? And I think that the important thing is to recognize what people are in that channel for, and to make sure that you're appropriate in terms of how you're packaging up your content, to make sure you're respectful of kind of why people are in LinkedIn or have you. So I think it's about making sure, not being lazy with it, just because it seems to be easy to upload posts and we're done. I think it's important to be thoughtful about what content goes in which channel and how you package it up to be engaging for what those audiences are wanting. Often people are grazing in these sort of channels. You know, they're looking for something interesting to disrupt them and sort of engage them, and to I think you've got to be sociable. It's kind of social media for a reason. So you've got to be personable and characterful, and give them a reason to sort of stop and take a bit more interest.
Yeah, I noticed, I was reading some stats the other day that 2.5 years ago, before the pandemic, the timing of uploading was basically first thing in the morning, lunchtime, and last thing at night, because people were commuting either in or having lunch. Now that's changed. You literally can post anytime because people are downloading or going on social media 18 hours a day. So it becomes irrelevant as to when you post it. But I guess you've got to be regular with it. But that sort of brings us to a great ending. Twink, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you today. I hope we can go for a walk across the fells of Hertfordshire. The East Anglia Mountain Rescue Team is not often used here. But no, it's been lovely to catch up. I wish you every success with your business. It's been great watching it grow and grow. And I know it does wins awards left, right, and centre. And you're very supportive of lots of other businesses. So great to talk to you.
Thanks,
and
Stuart.
I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. You take care.
I'm sure we will. Take care. Bye.